In this video, we're going to create a complete project using custom post type, advanced custom fields, front-end form submissions, and then how to moderate those front-end form submissions and decide what goes live and what doesn't. So to get started, the first thing that we'll do, we've already added advanced custom fields. We'll be using Oxygen as the templating system, the theme system, and we're going to load the custom post type UI. So head over to WordPress. And here we have custom post type UI. And that's just a very easy way to create custom post types. We activate. Custom post type UI is now enabled. And what we're going to do is we're going to add a post type. And to make this really easy, we're going to call this the custom post. And here it'll be custom posts. And the singular label, custom post. This can be anything you want. And then we scroll down, we'll bypass the initial options. And then when you get to the setting, it's important if you want to have an archive, for example, to make sure that all the settings here are correct so that you do have an archive view, which is the grid view that you would have in the front end of the website. So what we can do here is have a look at these options. We want it publicly queryable, show the user interface, yes, show in the nav menus, yes, delete with the user, no, show in REST API. We're not going to look at API, but you can. And then here we have as archive, and it's important here to set that to true. And then we have the slug to use for the archive URL. So what we're going to do is make that URL custom posts. And that's for the archive. So that would be the grid view where you see all the custom posts, and we'll call them custom posts. So with that in place, exclude from search. No, we want it included in the search. So false is good. Capability type, it's going to be a post. Hierarchical, whether or not the post type can have hierarchical relationships, we can make that true. Rewrite is true. The custom rewrite slug, so here we can go make that custom post again, and then everything else we'll leave. And then here we have support, so we'll support the title, the editor, the featured image. That's fine, and we'll also support the author. And that's all that we need to do now, and we'll say add post type. Now what we're going to do is create the taxonomies for that post type, the categories. So here we'll go custom categories, and the plural label, let's go custom categories, singular label, custom category. And now what we can do is we can link that to custom posts. And once again, we scroll down, we'll ignore the additional labels as we did with the custom post type, and we head down to settings. And here once again, some settings to look at. So publicly queryable, yes, and hierarchical, yes, true. So we can have categories that are subcategories of categories. And then we have the custom query string and the rewrite slug. So let's head to the top, and we'll call that custom categories then. So let's have a look here. Custom categories. We can allow that true. And yes, we'd like it to show in quick bulk edit panel, and we don't have a default term, and we'll add the taxonomy. So now what we have is we've added the taxonomy. So if I go over to edit taxonomies, you'll see that it's linked to custom posts. And if I go to my custom post, and I scroll all the way to the bottom, I can now link custom categories to that custom post type. I can save that, and now on the left hand side I have custom posts, add custom post, add new, and then I have custom categories. So I'm all set to create my posts. If we head over to that section quickly, you'll see that we have add new, and you'll see here we can select the author, and everything else is pretty standard. In a previous tutorial, we had some custom fields, which we will now go and address. But yeah, so the basic layout is there. And when we look at custom categories, let's leave. You'll see that we can also add a new custom category, and we can also select the parent. So there we have the basis for our project in place. And now what we can do is go and have a look at our custom fields and add a field group. So we'll head over into custom fields. And what we're going to do is, let's just edit this existing custom post, and we don't want it equal to all. So this one will only be equal to the standard WordPress post. So that won't interfere with our project. And now we're going to add a new field group. And we'll call this custom posts fields. And then we'll say that the post type is equal to custom post. So now we are assigning this custom field group to our custom post, and we'll publish, and now we can add our field. So inside there, because we're going to be linking the title and the content and the featured image to a front-end form, what we're going to do is we're going to start adding our custom fields, and we'll go custom title. Then we'll have custom content, and that we're going to make a YC Week editor, and we're going to have an image. Custom image. We're going to make that an image file. And what we're also going to do is we're going to scroll down, and we're going to make sure that we've also activated featured thumbnail. So that will ensure that our featured image is the featured image of the post. And we'll update that. Right, so that's our basic, the basic parameters for creating the post. Now we can link the taxonomy. So we can go custom taxonomy. And then here we're going to link that through down to relational. And the relationship is taxonomy. And we'll scroll down, and we'll say the taxonomy is going to be custom category, which is linked to our custom post. The appearance will be a checkbox. That's great. Can we create terms? Yes. Connect selected terms to the post. That would mean that that term is only available to that post, so no. And then load values from post terms, we can say yes. And then return value, we'll leave a term ID. And we can set that as bidirectional or not. Right, so let's save that for now. So there we have our field group, and then what we want to do is, because we can link more than one field group to our project. So these are custom post fields just the post values. But what we'll also add then, just to demonstrate a separate custom field group, is we'll go custom posts, and we'll call that custom parameters. And we'll say that that must also only appear when it is a custom post. So now we're setting up two sets of field groups to operate with the same post type. Now we're going to add a field, and what we'll do is we'll call this text. Let's call it custom text value. So that'll be a text value. And let's add another one and say custom URL value, and let's allow somebody then to enter a website. So we have a look here through our choice of options until we find a URL. So that's going down a bit far. There it is right at the top. So let's make that a URL. And then let's call it custom speed. And let's make that a number. And let's go with custom size. And let's make that a select. And let's make it a checkbox. And here we'll say for choices, we'll have small, medium, large. Allow custom values to be added. So let's do that. And then what we're going to do is we can save the custom values to the field's choices, which means it will also then be added here. And then we can leave the layout as vertical, and we'll just return the label. Well, let's leave it at the default for now. Right, so we've got a custom speed, a custom size. Let's add a repeater. So custom repeater, and there we've set it the repeater, and now we can fill in the field. So let's go repeater text, and we'll make that a text field. Then we'll add another one, which will be repeater date. So in each of these, there'll be a date. And there we'll have a look at a date picker. So we'll scroll down to date picker. And then let's add another field, which would be repeater number. And let's make that a number. Right, so that will be our repeater, will then be the repeater text, the repeater date, and the repeater number. And let's head up to the top and let's update that. So there we have the two sets of custom fields. And now when we go and have a look at our custom post, and we add a new post, and we scroll down, you'll see that we have the custom posts, custom parameters. And then here we have the custom post fields, which was the custom title, the custom content, custom image, and the custom taxonomy. So that's what we have at the moment. And if we want to swap these two around so that we have the post fields at the top, what we can do is go back to our field groups, and we can head over to custom post fields, scroll down, order number, so let's make that a 1. Let's go to the second field group. And let's give that a order number of 2. So there we have that. I'll close that. And then let's go and have a look at our post. Let's add, not post, custom posts. Add new. And now you'll see that we have the custom post fields at the top, and then the custom post parameters fall in beneath that. So that will then be where we start. And then on the right hand side, you'll see that we have our custom categories, featured image, and the author field. So let's just straight off the bat create some content here. So let's say first custom post, and you'll see at the moment that when we enter the values that there's nothing marrying, connecting the values to each other, because we haven't set up the forms and connected the forms to do that. So let's create that first, and then we'll create our first post. And in order to do that, we have installed a plugin which is called Advanced Custom Fields Extended. And it's the extended option that gives us the ability to create front-end forms really easily. So we'll head over to forms, and what we're going to do now is add a new form. And this form, we will call it custom post submission. So that'll be our form. And you'll see that as I type and I put in a space, it will put in a dash. So let's make that the same name. So custom post submission. And now we can select our custom post fields. And you'll see here that we are selecting both field groups to include in the same form that we're going to create. And then here we select what the action is. And in this case, the custom action is going to be the post action, because we are going to create a post. So with that in place, what we'll do is we'll publish first, and this will ensure that the custom fields appear on the load page as well as on the save page. So because we're not loading a post, we're creating the post. The first thing that we're going to do then is create the post and then save it. So let's include all these fields when we load up the page. And what we'll do now is the post type is not going to be post, but it will be custom post. The post status when we create will be in draft. The post title, we will link to the custom title. The post slug, we'll leave that as default. The custom content, we will link to post content. The post author will be the, let's link that to the current user. There, at the moment, we're not going to have a post parent, and then the post terms, we will link that to custom taxonomy. So now we've linked the basic post options to the form that's going to be used to create the post. We'll update that. Then we can do a couple of things. So once the user creates the post and submits the post, that will be a submission. And what happens when there is a submission? So let's hide the form on a successful submission, and let's say, thank you for submitting the new post. That'll just let the user know that the post has been submitted, and there's nothing else that we're going to look at doing here, but there are some custom hooks that you can hook into on the submission of the form, but we're not going to look at those at the moment. We'll hit update. So now, in fact, our form is ready to go, and we have some shortcodes here that we can use to implement. If we have a look at validation, we're not going to look at any validations at the moment. There's no HTML. And then when it comes to settings, this is where we can perhaps add some our own class to wrap the fields, to wrap the form. We're not going to look at any of those. The submit value, let's say submit custom post. So we know that that has taken effect. And it will include the honeypot, which is just there to help make sure that it's human submitted. And this is to sanitize the post information, so to make sure that nobody's inserting some malicious code. And the field element will wrap in a div. When it comes to uploader for input, we're not going to be using that, but yeah, you could set the media modal or basic. Then we have the label placement, which we'll leave at the top, and instruction placement we will leave with label. So that will then just be below the label or below the fields, and we'll leave it at below the label. And with that in place, we can select update. And now we're ready to create a new post. But while we're busy here with the forms, let's create a new form. Well, before we do that, let's add another action, and that's going to be an email action. And what we want to do then is email the post author, the admin, to say that a post has been submitted. So whatever we put in here is what's going to be set to the admin of the website. So to have a look at the different options, so here we have from, to, reply to, CC, BCC, subject, and the content. And inside the content, you can include some values, or you can simply use fields, and all fields will be included. So let's say information submitted, and we'll just put in the field so that all that information comes through. Let's update that. There's no attachment, and then of course there is some code here. So in that code you can see you can do a couple of other things. You can create your own, if you want to, you can create a function, hook into what happens. For example, the custom post submission, and then you can create your own form, your own email inside that using that function, and a custom action when the email is sent. And then of course we also have a cheat sheet here, and from the cheat sheet you can get the reference to the information that you might want to include for just about anything from this repository of code. So you don't have to go looking anywhere, it's all here for you. And for example, it's current author, we have current user, we have current term, current post, query, var values. Whatever you're going to need will then be on this cheat sheet related to creating the post. I'm not going to look at any of that right now. So what we have is we've set up a very basic create the post and submit an email to let somebody know that there is a new post. Let's update that. And then what we're going to do now is add another form. And this is going to be the custom post edit. So it's the custom post edit form, and once again the field groups will be the same as before. So if you wanted to, you could have just include one set of custom fields and not all the custom fields. And here we're going to say there's a post action, and it's going to be update post, and let's say and we'll say publish, and that's going to link the custom fields to the form. We'll head over to load. Now when we load, we do want to load some values. So we want to load all the custom fields. And what we're also going to do now is the source is going to be the current post. So that's the post that's open on the page. Then we're going to look at the post type and the custom post type. We will leave blank because it's not listed in our list of options. It'll then accept the default, which is custom post. But for example, you might include an option where you could change the post type to a product. Then you could quite easily take a normal post submission and give it the option to becoming a product, which you might then use in a WooCommerce shop. So you could literally take a post submitted, change the post type, and it could then literally become a product in a shop. Then we have the post status. So now when we load the post, we'll leave it at default. So it pulls in the default status of the post. The post title we know is custom title. The slug we'll leave as the default. The post content we know is going to be custom content. The post author, we know that's going to be the user, which is already set. So we'll leave that at default. We won't be setting a post parent. And then post terms we know is the custom taxonomy field. And the rest of the fields are then just part of the post. So we load with those values. Let's update that. And then we have a look at saving. And what you're going to notice now is that those values that we selected on load are now not editable here. So that's going to ensure that the content pulls through as it is when it loads. So it pulls through then when we save. So you can't change that between loading and saving. And the rest we're going to just make sure if you don't load the fields, then they're not going to be saved. And similarly, if you don't include them on the load screen, they aren't loaded with the form. So by doing that, they're loaded. Let's update that. And once again, on submission, we can say hide the form, and we can say thank you for updating. Right, so let's update that. Right, so now we've created our submission form, and we've created the edit form for the posts. Now what we need to do is just check if there's anything here, and we do want to change the value on the button to update post, and the rest we're going to leave the same, and we update. So now we've established the two forms. Now what we need to do is make that happen on the front end of the website. In order to do that, we need to make sure that we have the either this shortcode or this shortcode or this PHP code. So what we're going to do is we're going to go with this shortcode because we know that the ID of the create the post is 90 and to edit is 91. So with that in place, what we're going to do now is head over to our template, which is in Oxygen, and we're now going to create the template for the custom post and then include the fields in the submission form, and then we're going to create the post layout. So the first thing that we're going to do is create a template. Now we have an option here as to how we're going to do this. So we can either add the shortcode to a page here and include it in the content of the page. So that then doesn't use an Oxygen template. But if we use the Oxygen template, we can then apply conditions so that the form then is only visible to somebody who, for example, is an editor on the website. So better for us then to create the content in Oxygen. We do have a standard page template set up. So that means we can head over to Pages. And what we can do now is create a new page. And let's call that Create Custom Post. And let's publish that. And then what we're going to do is, once that's saved, we'll be able to edit that with Oxygen. So let's give that a second. Right, the post has now been saved, and let's go and edit that with Oxygen. So Oxygen loading. With Oxygen loaded, let's add a section. And inside the section, let's add that shortcode. So I'm going to do it by going with add, and I'm going to head over to WordPress, Shortcode Wrapper. And inside the wrapper, I'm going to add the shortcode. I'm going to head back to that wrapper, and then I'm going to change the percentage to 100. And I'm also going to change the width of the shortcode to 100 just to make sure that it uses the entire width of the content area for the form. And then inside the shortcode, we'll paste in the shortcode. There you can see it's coming up with the forms, but I'm going to make sure that it's on 90 because that was to create the post. So that doesn't look very good at the moment, but that's really because we're inside Oxygen and it hasn't rendered it as it should. And just to make sure that we know that we're in the right place on the form, we're going to, in that section, add a title. And that title will move to the top. And we will make that create a new post. Make that a little bit smaller, and we can center that. And let's just make sure that for our form, that everything is left aligned. Right, so there we have our form set up on the page, and we can hit save. And now just to have a look at that on the front end, we'll see that on that page we have create new post, the title, the content. We can add an image, categories. We can click on the plus, we can add a new category, and then we had our custom fields. So a custom text value, a website address, a number, and then we had custom sizes with the option to add a new choice. And then we also had the custom repeater. We can add row and then fill in those fields. So there we have everything that we wanted to do on the field, but what we want to do now is make sure that the form is not visible to everybody. So if somebody does stumble across this page, we don't want them to see that form. So one way that we can do that is we can simply select this entire section and we can either put a condition on that, so you have to be of a certain user or a certain user role, or we can say that if you're not logged in, you'll see a message, and if you are logged in, you'll see the form. So what we'll do is we'll say that if you're on the, if you've selected the shortcode wrapper, then we'll set the condition and we'll say that the user role must be equal to an author. And what we can also do is set the condition and say, set the user role is equal to a editor, and we can even say user role is equal to administrator, which it would show anyway. And then we can go back to conditions and say or. So either one of those need to be true, and then this will show. And what we're going to do now is we'll save that, and then we're going to add a div into that section. And what we're going to do is set that width to 100%, and then we're going to add some text, and we'll say you need to be an author to submit a post. And what we'll do now is in that div we will center information. We've set it to 100%. We'll go size and spacing, we'll make that 20, and then we'll give it a background color, and then we'll just change the color of that text in that div to typography. Let's make the color white, and we'll change the font size to 30. So it'll just say you need to be in order to submit the post, and you could link that to another button or a form that said submit here to become a author, and that then would generate a new user. So that is something that we can add at a later stage, but for now we're just going to focus on the top section here. And just to make that a little bit nicer, what we'll do is we'll just give that some space, and then we'll create some space below that. And the condition here on this message is that if, we'll just say add the first condition, and let's say user logged in is equal to false, then let's show that message. So if I'm not logged in, I will see that, and if I meet the parameters logged in, I will see the form. And let's save that. So now when I head over to the front end and I refresh, let's reload, and I scroll down, I don't see that message as I'm logged in. So if I wanted to see that as somebody who wasn't logged in, what I'm going to do now is just open that in a different browser. So here I have, and using a different browser, you'll see that you need to be an author to submit a post. So that's working. And when I am logged in, I can create a new post. So there we go. That's how simple that was. Now what we can do is have a look at actually submitting a post. So let's see how that would work. So let's call this the first custom post, and then make that the custom content. I'm going to add an image, Scroll down. Then there's no custom taxonomy, so I will say first custom, let's say category. It doesn't have a parent, it's the first one, so you'll see that it's been added. I can add another one, but let's move on. Custom text value, so let's say custom text value 1. Then we're going to look at a URL value, so let's make that google.com. Custom speed is 100. Custom size is large. Let's add the repeater. So the repeater text is repeater text 1. The repeater date is date, and the repeater number is number 1. And then I'm going to add another one, and let's call this repeater text 2. Let's give it a different date. Let's go in the past, and let's make that number 200. And now we're going to submit the custom post, and immediately you'll see that the validation occurs on the URL. And so here we can go and enter the URL value, and you'll see even as that it won't accept it, and you have to go and now when we submit the post, thank you for submitting the new post, and that is what we wanted to happen. And now when I go and look in the back end of the website, and I go and I have a look at my custom posts, there we have our first custom post. It is a draft. It's picked me up as the author, and you'll see that the content matches. It's pulled it through. We have our category on the right hand side. There's our featured image, and if I scroll down, featured image, first custom category, and then here are the custom fields that I completed. So as you can see now, we don't need to repeat this information. We already have it here, so no point in that and this. So in order to have that go away, we'll head back to our custom post type UI. We'll edit custom post types, and then I'm just going to do away with here. I'm going to say editor I'll leave, but I don't need that. I don't need that. Oh, I don't need that, but I'll leave the author, and I'll say update. And now when I go back to my custom post and I edit, you'll see now that I just have the custom fields that I'm using, and on the right hand side I just have the author. So very nice. On this page I can also add a new custom category. So I could say second custom category. So I can also do it from here. And of course I could have added a hierarchy as well. So I'm just going to leave it at that. So the same taxonomy could apply for tags or categories, or if there's anything else that you want to add there. So there we have our first post created. So once we're happy with our edit, we'll save that as a draft still. So now what we need to do is have a look to see how we would edit this post. And remember now that we would like to edit the post on the actual post page. So that would allow us to read the post first, and then below the post see the information that is in the post. So in order to do that, we need to adjust our template for the post. So we'll head back down to Oxygen. And what we're going to do now is we're going to create a new template for our custom post. So here we have the standard blog post. but we're going to add a new title and we're going to call it custom post single and edit. And then we're going to inherit the main, which is the header and the footer of the page. And here we're going to say singular. And then we're going to look here for custom posts, as this is for custom posts. And there's nothing else to set. And we will publish. Right, it is warning us that there's another builder open. So let's head out of the builder there. In fact, maybe easier if we just make sure the left tab is always for Oxygen, and we can go to Edit with Oxygen. And here we'll return to Custom Posts. And right, Oxygen is loaded, so now we can start loading some information. So let's add a section, and we're going to add two sections. The first one will be for the post, and the second one is going to be for the form for the editing of the post. So let's quickly head over to our custom fields and forms, and you'll see here that this is custom post submissions with an email, and in this little icon is to update post, and I can grab the short code here instead of the number. So as it's already available, I'm going to grab that one, head back to our section here. We're going to add a heading, and we're going to call this edit post, and then we're going to add the shortcode wrapper from WordPress, and straight away I can set that to 100% width, and then I'm going to add the shortcode. And then what I'm going to do is also set the size of that to the width of 100. And we'll just head back to the shortcode wrapper, which I can do by clicking in the breadcrumb. And I'm going to give that a 15 pixel all round. And what I'm also going to do is I'm going to give that a background. And we'll make that background color that lightish blue, and then we'll head over to the shortcode, and the shortcode we're also going to give a 15 pixel padding, and then what we're going to do is we're going to give this a background of white. So advanced background, right, so that will fit inside, and then what we'll also do is just give the border a radius of 5. Right, so there we have our form that will appear at the bottom of the post, and of course we want to set the condition because we don't want everybody to have access here. So let's center our heading, and what we can do this time is we can head to the shortcode wrapper and we can align to the left. Now what we can do is we can set the condition here and say that the editing form is only visible if the user role is equal to the author, the user role is equal to the editor, or the user role is equal to the administrator. And what we'll do is we'll set that to or, and we'll save. So now the editing form will only be visible to somebody authorized to use it. Then we can go and have a look at our post. So what we're going to do there is we're going to add a title, and that heading that we're going to add here will be the post title. So we can either do it this way and insert data, and choose post title. Or what we could also have done is gone over to WordPress, headed over to dynamic data, and this might be a little bit easier because I can just go title, and then I can add the next item, which will be content or featured image, and then I can add content, and I can add author, and then I can also add a custom field. So that is one way of adding it. So let's save that for now, and let's see if we can. There are no items to preview, and that's because we haven't specified that this template is for custom posts. So there won't be a preview. So if we want to pull up a post to preview, let's save this, and then let's head back to admin. And now what we want to do is under the singular, if under the reason there's no post to preview, of course, is not because of any setting, but because we don't have anything published. So if we'd like to see a demo view coming through, let's head over to our custom posts, and then let's change the status just for the editing purposes from draft to published. Update, and now when we refresh Oxygen, you will see that the custom post is pulling through. Right, so here we have the first custom post, and then we have the edit post below, so everything is looking fine. So what we can do now is just do some formatting. Let's make that central. This is the author. We'll leave the author at the bottom, and this was the content. This is the featured image. So what we can do now is let's have a look at our structure. So as you can see on the right hand side, we can't see what that is based on the writing. So let's rename this, for example, and we can call this post content. So we know that's the content. Let's rename so we know that's the post author. Right? The heading we know, and the image we know. Right, so now what we need to do is add some of these other fields into our post layout. So we can either do that by bringing in the advanced custom field PHP values, or what we can do is use Oxygen to bring in those values. So we have the content, we have the author, but before the author, we would like to add our custom field. So let's just add a div. Let's move post author below the div. And then what we can do is insert some text. Double click that text, and then we go to insert data at the top. And this is where we will access our custom field data. We go to advanced custom fields, and here you can see all the custom fields. Now, you'll remember that we put custom text value, custom URL value, custom speed, custom size, custom title. So the reason we put the word custom in front is just so that all our custom fields will be grouped together, and here we can see all our values. So the first thing that we can do then, of course, is the custom text value. So you remember we had the custom text value, and what's nice now is that I can just scroll down and see what the different values are. So custom, and then let's do the custom URL value. So custom URL value. After the custom URL value, let's do the custom speed. Right, so then we have the first group, and then we have custom size. So let's add the custom size. Right, and then we have the custom repeater. So now the repeater works a little bit differently. So before we get to the repeater, what we're going to do now is we're going to wrap each of these text items in a div. Let's just get that menu going here. Seems to be a small delay. And then we wrap the last item in a div as well. If that's not working, the other way to do it, of course, is to just add a div. And drop the text inside that div. Right, so we have that information now. And what we can do now is set a title. So we know that the first text that we had was called custom text value. So what's nice now is that the form pulls through the value title that we used in the custom field group. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to insert the title. So I know it's custom text value. So I can add the text. And I can say the custom text value. Now what I can say is I don't want this information though to be visible if it doesn't meet, if there's no value for custom text value 1. So in order to make that happen, I can go over to my conditions and I can set the condition and I can say if that custom field, so we go custom data, advanced custom field, and we know it's custom text value. And I can say is not blank or contains a value and then display the information and save. We'll now do that for the other values. So once again, we head over to the div and we're going to add some text. And that's website address. For now, we'll just use it like that. And what we're going to do now is once again add the condition. So we choose the condition. The condition we choose is dynamic data, advanced custom fields. We say we know that that one was custom URL value, and we say is not blank, and close that. We'll do the same for the next one, which was custom speed. Move the text above and also set the condition. So once again, dynamic data, advanced custom fields, custom speed, and we say is not blank. Once again, we could, if it's a number, we could make the condition based on a number. And then here we have size. So we'll add some text. Make that size. And set that condition. Dynamic data. Custom fields, and this one was size, so custom size. And once again, is not blank. So very quickly we've set up, so none of these will show unless they have a value. The other thing that we'd like to do is just do some formatting here. To make it easier, what we're going to do though is we're just going to add a class. So let's set a class here and just call it custom values. We'll add the class, and then what we'll do, we'll just give that some spacing. And for now, we'll make the width 100%. So it fits that 100%. And then we'll head over, and one way is to just type in the first letter, and it'll bring up all the classes with a C, so very quick. And there we've copied that class, those settings to all of those items, and then this div we will set to a width of 100. So there we have the custom values, and we've very quickly inserted them into our post. Here we have our custom content. What we'd also like to do is make that a width of 100% too. And what we would like to do is just give it some space below. Right, so there we have these custom posts, and just to make it easier to see, what we'll do is we'll give these custom posts a background color. So let's do it with that lightish blue again. And here we have the author. So what I'm going to do now for the author, I'm going to do something different. So I know it's the post author, and I'm going to wrap that with a div. Right, and then I'm going to add an icon. And the icon, let's do a user icon. And what we'll do is we'll stack elements horizontally. We'll make sure that they're aligned like that, and then I'm just going to swap that around. And the icon, I'll make it a little bit smaller. And then what I'm going to do is set that div to 100%. And make sure everything is aligned to the left. And then if I go up to the previous div, I can just set some size and spacing so that that has a little bit of space. What we need to do though is, in terms of fields available, is we still need to add the repeater field, and that's what we're going to do now. So we'll start with that div, and I'm going to add a new div to the section. And I'm going to move the user down to the bottom. Right, so there's my div, and let's set that to 100. And let's just put some space at the bottom, and let's just give it some spacing. Okay, so there we have our div, and now what I'm going to do is go to my helpers, and I'm going to say repeater. So I want to repeat, and here's my query, and we just say use advanced custom fields repeater, and the repeater of course is repeater test. We apply the query parameters, and here we have our query. So the first one that I'm going to do now is going to be, if we remember correctly, we scroll down, you'll see we've got repeater text, repeater date, and repeater number. So let's start off with the repeater text. And what I'll do just to get started is I'm going to go to basics, columns, and let's see if we can put in a 3 columns. There we go. And inside the first column, we're going to look for the repeater text, date, then number. So add some text. And repeater field. So you'll see it's different. And I can go repeater text. Then I'm going to add my text. And then it's the repeater select field, which was the we didn't have a, this is not the repeater fields for this post. These are the fields for a different post. Okay, so let's just start that again. So not to get confused. And then we'll go to insert data, advanced custom fields, and then in here we'll look for our repeater fields. So now we're going to get that repeater text. We go to insert data, and you'll see that we have here is a repeater field, and you'll see that there is the repeater date. We'll head over to the next column, and we'll add some text. Let's just add that again. Right, something strange going on, so let's just start that again. So we go to the first div and we'll add some text. And we'll assign the repeater value there of the repeater text. Then we'll move over to the next div, add some text. And we'll go to the next repeater value, which was the repeater date. And then we'll head over to the last div. We'll add some text. Insert data. Head over to the repeater field, and that will be the repeater number. So now we have the text, the date, and the number. And once again, what we can do for that whole section, that whole div, is make sure that there is a value for the repeater. So let's see how we can make that work. Dynamic data. And let's just see if there is a way to select the repeater field. Okay, there's no way to select one of the repeater fields, so there needs to be a different way to make this work. Right, I'll have to come back to that. All right, so there we have our content in that repeater element. In the meantime, that is working. And what we can do now is inside the columns is maybe we'll just move those items to the center of each column. And what we're also going to do then is put in the titles, but we don't want to put the titles inside the repeater. So we'll go outside of the repeater, add, we'll say 3 columns. We'll move that up, and then we can we'll add a heading. And we'll call this repeater text. Font size, we'll just make that 16, or let's make that 20, and font weight of 500. Right, so we've got repeater text. Let's put the repeater date. And then we'll duplicate and make that the repeater number. And then we'll also centralize. So there we have the 3 columns with the information. And if we scroll down, there you can see we have that information, and the information is showing in the table. We'll save that. And now we'll head over and have a look at our post on the front end. So we'll click on View. So if you click on View and you see your post isn't applied, don't get a fright. What we need to do then is just adjust the priority of that template. So this is the default template pulling through default values. What we want to do is make sure that our custom template applies. So we'll head back to Templates, and then on the custom post single and edit template that we just created, we just up that priority to anything above 0. We'll make it 5 for argument's sake. Update. Head back to our post. refresh, and there you see we have our layout. We have as per what we created. What I'm going to do is just add the taxonomy in there under the title. So edit with Oxygen quickly. So here we are, and we're just going to add, under that we're going to add categories. So the first thing that we'll try, we'll go to dynamic data, we'll say categories, and you'll see it pulls in the default WordPress category. So that's not going to work for us. So then we say add, and we'll go to basics, and we'll say text. Let's move that up to below the heading. Select the text, insert data, and we'll go to no, better just to go to maybe custom categories, and we can insert a separator. I like to do a space. Insert, in our case there was only one category, and what we'll also then do below that is we'll add in some space, we'll save, and you'll see now that you can actually click on that. So if we refresh, you'll see that the taxonomy term is already pre-linked, and there is our form at the bottom. So if we were to update this post, so let me add another category and update post, let's see what happens. Category immediately appears, and if I scroll down, thank you for updating. So the form is working as it should. Now what we need to do is start looking at the archive. So if I click on an archive view here, it goes to the default view, which is not what we want. We need to create our own archive for our custom post type. So let's head back to Oxygen. Let's head back to the admin, and then let's create a new template now for the archive. So we'll call this a new template custom post archive. So that'll be the archive. We'll inherit the main, and now we go to the archive setting here, and we say under taxonomies, we will say for custom all custom categories, and under post type we're going to say custom post. Right, with that saved, and we already know that the priority of our template should be at least 1, so we'll just set it for 5 and we'll publish. Then we'll head over to edit with Oxygen, and to make this work we're going to use the repeater. So we'll use the section and we'll use the structure. So now we can see what we have. We'll head over to the helper, and we're going to go with the repeater so we can create our own structure. Under the query then, it won't be, we can say default because we've already selected that this is for custom posts. So it will automatically pull that information through, and under repeater now we have the div, and inside that div we can create our post. So what we'll do is we'll create a div, and we'll set that div width to 33.33. Right, and we're also now going to say stack elements horizontally and allow multi-line, which means that after the third post it will come back to the beginning. And let's get started. So here we're going to add, let's add the title. So that'll be the div, and inside that div we're going to add the title. Make that an H2 tag. And don't worry about the additional layout that you see here, you can ignore that. And what we'll also do now is look, and that div, we're going to set that to have the featured image as a background image. So we'll head over to background and we'll go to data, advanced custom field, and we'll go to custom image. We'll just make that large, insert, and then we'll say it should cover and no repeat. And then we'll move that to the top and we'll set the width of that div to 100%. So it fills that space. And now what we'll do is we can also set the height of that div. So inside the size and spacing, we'll give it a 200. Let's make that 150. 150. And we'll also then center the image. So head back to background. And here where we have left to right, we can set that to 50, and that'll make it 50%. And if we want to make the height 50%, center it in the center of the image, make that a 50 as well. So now that image is centralized. Then we can go back down to the heading, and that's a little bit big, so let's make that 18, and let's give it a font weight of 500. What we'd also like to do is let's center everything in that teaser. And what I can do now is I can go in and change the typography of that heading and give it a line height of 1.2. And I think what I'm going to do is wrap that in a div, and I'm going to give that div 10 pixel padding all around. And the heading, maybe I'll make that a little bit bigger. So with that in place now, I can just duplicate that div, and I can put any custom field value here. So if I wanted to, I can select my text, insert data, go to my advanced custom field, and I could put in the custom text value, for example. And then I could duplicate that, and maybe I want to and I could also do the custom speed as an example, custom speed. And what I'll also include then just below the heading, so that was the heading, I'm going to duplicate, and what I'll do is I'm going to insert the data, and this time I'm going to go for the custom taxonomy. Once again, asking for a separator. And let's not do the term ID or term URL. Let's do it this way around and go to custom categories and insert. So now the categories will appear. And what's really interesting about the about what we're doing here is that we can get a bit more creative. So the reason for wrapping everything in a div and for using a div here for the image is, for example, what I might want to do is, for example, I could bring up the I could do it with the taxonomy, I could do it with the title. So I could actually bring the taxonomy, or in this case, let's use a custom value. So I could take custom value 1, and I could position that I'd like to move that into the div here. Right, so I've positioned that there. And what I'd like to do now is maybe position this value like we have there, but not in the center. Maybe I want to put it here towards the bottom. So in order to do that, I'm going to make this a absolute position, and I'm going to set the bottom to 0, and I'm going to set the right to 0. And when I do that, you see that the content disappears, and to bring it back to this div, because it's a nested div inside this div, I go to the div that I'd like it to be nested in, and I go to the layout of that div, and I change that position to relative. And now you see that my content is back in the position that I want it to be. Now the div has a padding of 150 and 150, but that is irrelevant because my content is now going to be positioned in this corner. So with that in mind, I can now head over to that div, and what I'm going to do is change the background color. So I'm going to make it a bit of a red, and then I'm going to change the text color, and I'm going to make that white. Now I've made that a solid color. I can give it a gradient, a transparency. And then what I will do as well is go to the borders, give it a rounded border. And then I don't really want it to be sitting right on the edge. So I've already given it, give it a 15 pixel, some padding, and I don't really want it sitting on the edge. I'd like it to be off the edge. So in order to do that, I head back to the layout, and instead of having it 0 and 0, I can make that 10, and I'll make the bottom 10. And now if I put left 10, you'll see that it'll stretch it all the way across, and I can then center that value inside the div. So that's how I can get that value to position itself anywhere inside that div. Similarly, if I wanted to position it in the top right hand corner, I would then remove the bottom, I'll change the 10 to the top, and I can have it in the top. And if I take the left away, it will then just be the content with the padding around, and that will be the size. So maybe what we'll do is we'll leave it like that in the top right hand corner. And remember now that because this is in that position, I can add any custom field to that value. So the nice thing now is that I can make a custom layout for my custom field, my custom post type, but with the information that I would like to see in that space. So it could be, so for example, here we've put this number, we have that custom value, but any custom value can be pulled in. There we, for example, have the category values. So let's remove the category values. And let's just stick then with the title. That was the custom number. And let's save that. And let's just have a look at that on the front end. So now if I say first custom category, you'll see that it pulls in as I've created it. But you'll notice that I can't click on anything to do anything. So what I need to do now is make this clickable. So we head back to our layout, and now we can add a link. So I can make the whole area clickable if it's all going to click through to the same place. So I would then go up here to link settings. Let's close that. And I'm going to go to data, and we'll make that permalink. So that's the permalink for this post, and save. And now you'll see that some of the formatting has changed because now everything is a link. So to just correct that, I can head back now and just give a color to the various items. So typography, and we change the color then. So now it's just a normal color. I can then save, head back to my archive, refresh the page, and now if I click anywhere here, I'll be redirected back to the post. Let's go to the second custom category, and you'll see the same applies. What we'd like to do now, of course, is put in a title for the category that we're in. So let's, in fact, what we'll do is we'll add a section, and then we'll put the title in a separate section, add the title, and insert the data. And now we're going to go, instead of going to the post section, we just scroll down here to the archive, and we say archive title, and let's center that. Let's give it slightly less padding, just so we can get more on the page, which means we can come down here and change the padding for the archive section too. And let's save that. Now you'll see that the word archives now appears in front of the archive, and that's not something that we really want. So if I go to first custom category, it's just not working having it look like that, and it won't be working in the second custom category either. So before I go and remove that, I'm just going to give this font weight of 500, and the font size, I'm just going to drop that down to 40. And now what we're going to do is show you how you can get rid of that wording archives. So in order to do that, we're going to head back to the backend, and now we need to add some a custom function. So to do that, we head over to plugins, and because Oxygen works the way that it does, we're going to add the plugins snippet. So let's go snippets, and we install that. Then we activate. Now that it's activated, you'll see on the left-hand side we have a new section called snippets, and then there's some examples that are included. We're going to add a new snippet here, and we're going to say remove archive prefix, and we're going to put in our code there. And what I do is I have a program that I use called mass code, where I keep a whole lot of code that I need from time to time to make it easier, and I can just simply go in there, copy this code, and paste it in. Once I'm happy with that, I can save changes and activate. And now when I head back to my custom posts and I say view custom posts, you will see that the prefix is no longer visible, and if I go into a single category, first custom category, and if I go to second custom category, second custom category. So now I can see my post, and I can click on the categories, and if I scroll down, I see the content, and I can see the form. So let's have a look at that if I'm not a logged in user. So let's copy that. So here I have it open in another browser, and there is the content and no editing form, and because I'm logged in here, I can see that. Right, so now what we want to do is head back to our post, our editor. Let's go back to the admin. And now what we want to do is we want to create the ability to set the published value of the post from draft to publish, because at the moment the only way to do that is to head over to edit the custom post, and now we can change the status here from published to draft, but we actually want to be able to do that on the front end. In order to do that, we would head back to our custom fields, into our field groups, and what we're going to do is under the custom post fields, we're going to add a new field, and we're going to call that custom status. And what we're going to do is we're going to make that a radio button, so you can only choose one or the other. And under choices, we're going to have publish. Well, let's do draft first, and the second one will be publish. And then we're going to update the field group, and now what we're going to do is head over to our forms, and what we want to be able to do is on the edit post, so the custom post edit form, we want to be able to edit the post. So what we'll do now is on load, we know that when the post is saved, it will be saved in the draft status. But what we're going to do now, this is in the editing field, so what we're going to do is set the post status on save to post status. We're going to change that to, instead of being draft, we're going to say that that's the custom field, and that custom field status field status. So we just scroll down till we get to the custom fields. So here they are here. Custom status. So now we will now set the post status to the status of that select. So now if I go and have a look at my posts, at my custom posts, and I view my custom post and I go and edit it, and I scroll down, you'll see now that I have an option here for draft or publish. So if I was to save this now as a draft, and I head back to that custom post, you'll see now that the status is in draft. And similarly, if I view the custom post and you'll see now it actually comes up in the preview window. If I try to edit that now in the preview window, and I change that status to publish, and I say update post, it confirms that the post has been edited, and I refresh, you'll see now that the status is changed to published. And if I view the custom post, you'll see here that the custom status is set to draft. And the reason for that is because we need to change that form. So we head back to custom fields, we head back to our form, and we say now that when the custom post loads, that the post status must also be set as per the custom status field. So the post status and update. And now we're going to look at custom posts. And it's in the publish mode. So if I scroll down now, it's in publish. If I change that to draft and I say update post, it will update the status. If I just refresh to get the form to show, you'll see that it's back to draft. So if it's in draft and we go and have a look on our other browser, it shouldn't actually show because the post isn't published. So it doesn't show. If I then update here and I update my post and I head back and I refresh the page, you'll see that the post reappears. So that's how easy it is then for us to show draft and published posts. But maybe what I want to do is in my post archive, I want to separate the published posts from the posts that aren't published. So I can actually now on my archive page go in and have a look and see all the posts that are available for approval, for editing or moderating in the same place. So here we have our custom posts. We have the repeater. So there's the repeater and we have the query. And we've said that the post type must be custom post. But what we can also do is set the status to be published. Now, if I go and have a look, you'll see that I can set the order, I can set the count, but what I can't do is set the post status. So in order to do that, I'm actually going to have to do a manual query, and we're going to change post underscore type, and that's going to be custom post. And then instead of category name, let's change that to post status, and that must be publish. And post per page, we say -1, so it includes all. We apply the query, and right, so now we have the post status of publish. So we save that. Now when I go to my archive, I can see the post. What will happen now is that when I change the status now to draft, and I update the post, and I head over to the category, it's no longer visible. Now I'd like to see that post in a section below the published posts. So I'm going to add a section. And that section, I'm going to just create a heading. And let's call that draft posts, and we'll center that, and we'll just change the font weight of that to 500. Let's just change the size and spacing there quickly. Right, so these are our draft posts, and inside the draft posts, I'm going to just take my repeater here, and I'm going to duplicate that, except now that when I go to the query, and I'm going to change the post status from publish to draft. And we'll save that. And what I'd also like to do is, or before that, I can we'll see now that is under draft posts. What I'd also like to do is say that this section is also then user role is equal to editor, user role is equal to author, user role is equal to administrator, and it should be set to all. Save. Right. One more change that I'd like to make is when editing between draft and publish, I'd much rather prefer to have the draft or publish right here next to the update post, so I don't have to keep scrolling so much. So to do that, we'll head over to custom fields. We'll head over to our field group. And what I'm going to do now is custom post fields. The status is here, but I'd actually like to put it into the other field group so that it's closer to the bottom. So I'm going to move that to the parameters group and move field. Close window, update. Now I know that when I go to my field groups and I go to custom parameters, that the custom status is there and it's put it at the bottom. Now when I go to custom posts and I say view custom posts, I don't see any posts. And when I go, you'll see now because that is in the draft. So let's change that to published. And now when I see, now my custom posts are back. So now when I go into edit, you'll see that the draft or published is right at the bottom. So it's nice, quick and easy to get to. Right. Now what we can do is, what we do want to happen is we do want it to be such that the draft posts will appear below. And if I go to my archive, you'll see that I don't see any draft post notification, but I will see it here. And if I change the status, it will move. So let's make this, let's add this link then to the navigation just to make it a little bit easier. So I can, if I want to get there to the header, I can then just click on the header and say open and edit template. It opens the main. Open anyway. There isn't any other template open. That loaded. I do have a menu here which pulls in a default menu from WordPress. But what I could also do is just change this here to this link. just for the demo purposes. Have a look. So now when I say get oxygen, it will bring up this page with the posts in. What I'm also going to do now is add the page to create the post. So what I'll do then is in that text link, I'm going to duplicate that, and I'll change the text here to archive. Let's call that custom posts. And let's give that a margin to the left. And then what I'm going to do is the text here, I'm going to say create post. But I don't want everybody to see that. I only want logged in users to see that. So this particular text link then, which will link back to our page for create custom post. Let's get that link. And let's just update that. And let's go and view that page. And I'm going to change that link. But then this particular text link, I'm going to set a condition. And it will once again be let's make it user role equal editor, user role, add condition, user role equal to author. And save. So that means that when I refresh, I have my custom posts, but I can't see as an administrator. So user role is administrator. And what I'm also going to do is set that to all. And now when I refresh, I can create a post, or I can view the posts, but as somebody who's not logged in, if I refresh, you'll see that I can only go to custom posts. I cannot create a post. Right. So in the next tutorial, we'll have a look at how you can create a user and give them then access to be able where they can register on the website, and then you can actually they can then have the rights then to go in and create posts. So let's have a look at that in the next video. Thank you for watching.